natural state. The virtual stump is gonna set the record straight. Benton's got the mob, Washington's hogs hop. Carroll Street's twist, Madison's miss drop. Boone's got the buffalo, Newton's elk chrome. Marion's river, Baxter's trout home. Fulton Salem is a steep cave. Sharp's hearty water is the kind that you crave. Randall's five rivers, Clay's got the loam. Green's Paragould is a place to call home. Lawrence is the mother crate, hair grows her ice. Mississippi steel makes everything nice.
All right, and good morning, everyone. We've made it once again to another day on the calendar, Thursday, January the 14th. My goodness gracious, this year is flying by. Isn't it kind of funny, though, how when the year starts off anew, first kind of like a little bit of a putter, then it just starts to get in a hurry, and then it slows back down, and the ebbs and flows of the feelings of time. Well, today what we're going to talk about, my friends, neighbors, and fellow countrymen, is a little bit of a reflection. Yesterday morning while doing the stream, I had once again made mention of Scott Adams, as I've been following him for quite a while now, and enjoying his morning coffee talk, Coffee with Scott Adams, that he did every single morning with very few exceptions. The only exception being that when his pretty much terminal prostate cancer required treatments that took him away or just really knocked him down. Well, yesterday morning, during the show, Scott was ticking out, man. And so when we finally got to the 9 o'clock hour on our side, and I kicked on and found out that Scott had passed, it was like, damn, okay, all right, well, there's something. And he was an amazing human being in a lot of ways, because, again, the man personally I never met, but his body of work has been truly an inspiration. I mean, it really, really has, because I remember back in the 90s when we were all part of the culture, the Dilbert culture. You had people living in cubicles, and the ties. Everybody had the same damn ties and the same, that look, that feel, that 90s aesthetic. And although Dilbert, the comic, started in the late 80s and then moved into it, but I mean, it was such a wonderful snapshot of that time, and Scott Adams had an ability to really capture that culture and make it as funny as it really was, and still is. If you have not picked up a copy of the 2026 Dilbert calendar, I do believe it's still available on Amazon. Hadn't sold out quite yet, but you should totally get one, because I've got one right back here with Dilbert that I 3D printed. Just there's a juxtaposition inside of that, the traditional desk calendar, which in and of itself is kind of definitely a sign of the times of the 90s and that cubicle living. But then the most modern thing you could possibly do in printing Dilbert. I don't know, it's kind of a cool circle. But another thing that I wanted to do this morning, in thinking about, reflecting on Scott, because it was funny. It's like we all saw it coming. If you were following along and you were having coffee with Scott Adams every morning, it was like, okay, all right, well, the biggest thing in that regard is we all knew it was going to happen. It was coming. And in that, and someone had pointed out on X this morning, or somewhere where I saw it on my feed, but again, it's like in what Scott Adams did in his own life, and then his final moments in his death, he reframed it to where it's not something to fear, but it's something to approach. And if you approach it with the right mindset of it's a coming, so be useful in the process. And he really was. And I'd been thinking about that for a few weeks when it came to what we were witnessing collectively every morning, knowing that, like I say, he went through the highs and the lows, the hope of certain treatments, even with the health secretary, Robert Kennedy, stepping up and getting into the ear of the president to see if we could get rid of some of the unnecessary bureaucracy, red tape, procedures that's terrible for everyone. So I drew attention to that. So that's pretty awesome when you think about it. I mean, the usefulness in his initial plea to, hey, I can use a little help here. And things got moving and shaking. And it showed to me that people will still unite around things they believe in. And that's very encouraging for humanity. Now, how do you get us to unite? Well, I don't know for sure. I don't know of a particular thing, but I do know we will. So if it could be done once for any person, whether they be of the famous celebrity class or just some guy on the street, that you've never seen, don't know his name, may never hear it again. But if people rally around that person and their problems that need solutions, things can absolutely get done. And so with that said, that's kind of where I want to look at this thing, because, you know, it was like, when you get to know someone online, right? You've never met them in the flesh, you never met them in person, but you build a bond. But then when you connect with a creator who has a body of work that you can dive deeper into, that bond gets closer, right? Now, it can go in two different directions. You get closer to their perspective and their message, which is the healthy, good thing. Or you get so close that you start to form a bond that kind of teeters into a little bit of, we'll call it delusion, but for what it is. It's like, I know in my radio days back in the 90s, it was like I would have my regular callers who would call into the show, you know, and it was music show stuff, right? So you have plenty of time in between, and they would call and you'd chat a little bit, and then as the weeks, months, and years would go by, those relationships would form similar to what is on social media, except you were actually talking to one another. But then and that was cool. That's cool. But then there were the other ones who were the dedicated listeners who would call, make a request, make us just a, hey, how are you? That were kind of teetering into that little bit more delusion type territory. And then the ones who didn't call, but who are listening religiously and framing relationships that didn't exist. I know I had 2 instances over all those years, just 2 that I can recall, to where there were a couple female listeners spread out that decided that we had a relationship. They didn't even know they know what I look like, for God's sake. It was radio. But there was a relationship. I had threats because a guy thought I was running around with his gal. It's like, bruh, no. And so, you know, those things, those play misty for me moments, they were there. They were real. And, you know, and it's funny because, again, as social media has evolved over the past 15 years, inside of this window, and I see the problems that, like, the online personalities, content creators, influencers, whichever particular slot they want to fall into, I watch them as they start to hit walls that were the same walls that you would hit in the past with traditional media. Example being, like, and this is one of the things where I never could just, I knew better than to commit to something too structured in producing to put online, right? Because, now this is also going back 5, 6, 7 years, to where when you put something online, you produce a video, I saw you would produce it with the same type of production value and quality in mind that you would a traditional television broadcast, because now we got video we got to contend with. Well, in that, I knew that you can only go so far as like before it really gets hard. I mean, this is why television series, they'll go like 8, 13, 22 episodes at a run, because that's a whole lot of work. And to be consistent, because if you're not consistent, it's going to fall apart. Because if the audience can't depend on you to be there, well, then you're not going to build an audience, right? Like, even with this. Now, this is cool because it's free flow. And so here's me being useful. And that's the whole topic of today, is that if you are going to, with all the new that is completely old, right? If you want to have an online presence, you must be consistent. Now, the arguments inside of there is you have to post daily. You have to do that type of thing, right? Which is still true. Others say, well, you can get too spammy. Yes, you can. But if you have one anchor thing that is the consistent thing that you do, that you can commit to, and it won't burn you out, it won't wear you out, that I find is almost a universal truth in mass communication, okay? Or it doesn't have to be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly. You see what I'm saying? And if you maintain that type of consistency, you're going to be great, right? Now, does that mean you're going to go viral and have 1 million viewers or whatever? I can't say. That depends on what you do. You got to be interesting, entertaining, grab them, so on. But you got to be real. That's always been a thing. You've always got to be real. The term now is authentic. You must be authentic. And yes, we must be authentic in what we say. I could put together, gosh, I could make it sound like I give a damn about a lot of things that I just don't. Yeah, saying like with what Gar does, Gar in his one of the things that I love that he's done now is with his producer getting him to have an archive available to where if something happens and he can't be there live, there is a show ready to go. And when you've got, and that's another thing, once you've got all of these things built up and stacked up, you do have things you can go back into. And if you think about it, the rerun back in the day would fill that void, you know. Yeah, and so when you look at those things, and like those 25 regulars there that you mentioned, Damien, for Horrible Horror with Gar the Ghoul, you guys sustained something that, frankly, in my view, is that 25 regular viewers is far more powerful than 25,000 willy-nillys. And I will stand on that rock because you guys are the core. You are the core. And while Gar is not looking, I'm speaking for Gar, right? But in the conversations we have, one of the things about his motivation, he does it simply because he loves it. But he also loves the audience. He appreciates everyone in the audience. And seeing that's another one of those things he and I have in common, that I know he's so real and so genuine. And it's cool. And so, and again, he's inside of Horrible Horror. You guys have built a bond, a friendship, a tribe. I don't like that damn term, but it is what it is. But there's a commonality in a place, that the house that Gar has built, that gives people the opportunity to breathe. Me personally, I have wanted to be able to have that type of thing, but I couldn't find something to commit to until here and now. 8 o'clock of a morning, having coffee with you, that's great. Whoever wants to come on board, come on in. Does it need to be 1 or 1,000,000? Don't care. Whoever shows up, let's talk, let's think about things, let's share ideas. And for me, going back into the lower third graphic you see right there, being useful and reflecting on Scott Adams, because that was one of the biggest things. And that was how he signed off for life. I mean, not just because that was his point, purpose, and everything that he did, but even in walking into the abyss, that was the biggest suggestion he could make to everyone. Be useful. And that is, for me, so profound and so simple and so true. Just like whenever he said, make a decision. And then everything just starts lining out. And that's such a true statement. And boy, but when he said it, it rang, it hit, it made it make sense. And I was like, that's good stuff. And so yesterday, again, it's like as soon as I got done on this, I slid over to Coffee with Scott Adams, and to find out Scott was gone. He passed away right before the show, literally right before. He planned on being on the show. And that was it. And so his ex-wife, former wife, but still there with him, Shelley, she read the thing he had put together. And that was so sincere and so real. And that's available various places online that you can, actually if you go to his X account, it's the pinned post, to where you can read Scott's final words to everyone. And that, the biggest thing that he did there is, like when it comes to his book, Reframe Your Brain, great book. Because again, it's like, it's not what the question is, it's how you look at the question. When you see the problem, how do you frame the problem? How do you look at it? How do you solve the problem? And your perspective and the way in which you talk to yourself is the way you can get through anything, and you can figure things out better than you could before. Doesn't necessarily mean you're always right, but you're probably more often to be right than you are wrong, right? So anyway, but watching that, and it was all good until Jack Prosovic, he did the simultaneous sip of the day. If you're familiar with the show, that was the way Scott kind of opened everything up. He had this saying, this wonderful way in which the ceremony and ritual was conducted. And I don't want to say it because it still breaks me up to think that of everything, that body of work that Scott Adams put out, that's still available to all of us today, be it the bookshelf, the collections of the newspaper strips, the calendars of Dilbert, all of those things. But that's the one that stings. To that simultaneous sip where he had the full, and I can't say it, I'm telling you, I'll crack up, I'll break. I don't want that, because hearing Jack Posobiec read it, to lead the simultaneous sip yesterday morning, first time ever without Scott doing it, and he just read Scott's sheet there, And I wish Scott did too. I mean, that was a big mouthful to memorize, right? But it was great. Anyway, but that's what choked me up, because that was what was forever gone. Scott Adams doing the simultaneous sip in that ritualistic style. That was awesome. Because it was fun. Because the first time I saw that, however long ago it's been now, and I thought to myself, man, now that is a powerful thing. Because it's like you're really better than a theme song. All right, so you think about a show from once upon a time ago, and you heard the theme song, and so you'd start bebopping, and if it had lyrics, you'd all be singing along, and then as soon as you got to that final note, you know the show was on. And with the simultaneous sip being that thing, that dopamine hit of the day, that was such like that battle cry that we're on to it now, let's get after it. And then go into his show of the day. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but now here's the thing. They are going to be missed. Again, for me personally, that's the moment that I will truly miss, that cannot be recreated. There are videos. I mean, they did over 3,000 episodes of Coffee with Scott Adams. And they're there. They're archived out various on YouTube or Rumble or all the places that he streamed it out to. It's all cataloged forever and ever. Amen. But it's not the same. But everything inside of the shows, past the simultaneous sip, has its own timeless value. And that's awesome. But that opening will never be the same. Never can. But that's okay. Because again, it's just the way it is. It's the way it's meant to be. But again, in what we're doing this morning and thinking about being useful, because that's one of the things, that whole concept of being useful is something that I've honestly tried to do before I named it, right? I like the idea of doing what I do, learning things, sharing skills, making someone's projects come to life, right? If you dream it, I'll build it. Said it forever. And I have in many, many instances. The older I've gotten, I've started to learn a little bit more about, well, sometimes you got to apply a little discernment, and sometimes you got to say no. You just got to know. For me, it's like, I don't want to go in the weeds too much with just something very, very recent, where I had someone call, and they had I'll call it a problem. And I, in the past, would just jump all over it. Be all over it. I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this. Here we go. Nowadays I pause and I start asking questions first to see exactly where everything is in that particular need and problem. And I will discern how much involvement I can have if those questions aren't answered, because I've learned that lesson now. And as such, I'm just not going to be able to help as I think the person was wanting me to, because I think it would be less helpful for me to help. Does that make sense? And so I've learned that type of discernment, and that comes through thinking and questioning and growing up, because before there was nothing I couldn't do, right? I had that I can do it. Hell yeah, if I, and 9 times out of 10 I could pull it off. Last minute stuff, things that I didn't necessarily know if I could do, but I had just enough inside of that skill stack, that talent stack that I've got, to where I could pull from all those different things and make it happen. One case in point is this lower third graphic here. Number 1, tip of the hat again to Damien for suggesting, hey, put the topic up so we know what the hell we're talking about when we get here. Okay, cool. There it is. But the other side of it is that I was like, okay, I want this lower third. Yesterday I just had the text on screen, and that was fine. It served the purpose, but it looked like crap. So I'm like, well, let's start shining the spokes of this thing, right? There's no reason for it not to be shined up, but it doesn't have to be either. The main thing is showing up at 8 o'clock. That's the main root of what I'm doing here. But now let's start making it pretty. Okay. So anyway, I was like, okay, well, that text on screen, it was driving me. I was just like, oh, get over it though. It's there, move on. So I was like, today I'll put together a lower third, and that way I can put it there so it's a little bit cleaner and prettier. Well, I was like, okay, now I'm still bleary-eyed. I rolled out of bed at 6:30, and I had to take care of the animals and do my usual morning ritual with them, versus they make my life very, very, very difficult. So anyway, I do all that, and I was like, well, you know what? I'll get the robot. Let's see if the robot can build me a graphic, because they're supposed to be able to do all these amazing things, and they can do amazing things. However, they still need human input and influence to do so, okay? So anyway, I type in a prompt into Google Gemini. It opens up Nano Banana, the greatest video or the greatest image generator in the history of human beings. And it botched it over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, this sucks. This is just not going to work. Where all along the way going into it, I knew I could simply open Photoshop. I could grab a couple elements from here and there, and I could build a lower third pretty damn quick because I've done it a long time. But I was being stubborn. And I was like, because I wanted certain, like gradients and things like that could be kind of a pain to get laid out proper. So I was like, all right, fine. So I just went ahead and I threw one more prompt at the robot and said, okay, just do this. And it botched it again. So what did I wind up doing? I took what it created and I threw it into Photoshop and I cleaned it up, and you see what you see here. And I say that just to show that, again, the tools are just the tools. They ain't taking over jack, but they will most certainly be replacing things. Because now everything that you see here in this lower third, right, all of it, now see, traditionally I would have just built that in Photoshop, and honestly it would not have taken very long. It would have taken longer than having the robot gather up elements, so I didn't have to go either thinking too hard or fishing too hard to find this stuff. So anyway, there's that. But I don't know, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm really thinking about that. Like with the passing of Scott, it's like, okay, how am I being useful? How have I been useful? And finding the balance in usefulness versus opening yourself up too much, or where you find yourself kind of being used and abused. And it's not necessarily the other person's fault because you didn't say no, because you can't. That's a big thing. Learning that you can say no. It's okay. Yeah, and so anyway, in that usefulness, so I just gave you a very fast, super duper, how to do a lower third better than the robot. Use the robot to gather assets so you don't have to go surfing around for it. Again, a lot of these things, especially all the large language models like Google Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., Grok, all of them. Well, not all of them, but those are particular. It's like they can get you things faster than you surfing yourself. So there's the asset. But it doesn't know what to search for until you tell it. And so when it does give you stuff, you're like, oh, that's pretty good, but I need it more like this. And then it can refine faster. So in that, it can be a producer working alongside of you. And that's a wonderful asset to have. And also, as things sit right now, when it comes to it gathering or generating assets, generic basic stuff like what you see down here, you don't have to contend with copyright trademark stuff because you're generating something new through your influence and input. And that's another thing too, when it comes to in the creator space of things, that is just such a mess right now because of copyright trademarks, which are good, other than they get skewed in ways that aren't necessarily a great idea. Like when it comes to like the status of like, or the public domain rules now, because now it's extended out to 95 years of something, maintaining copyright past the creation time, right? It's a mess. And so, and again, it's not, because here's the reality. It's just like a lock on a door. What's it for? To keep the honest man honest. Because you can have all the copyright and trademark protections in the world you want, but those who are going to profit on it or profit from it in what is considered a piracy illegal manner, they're doing it anyway. You're not going to stop it ever, because they can do it in a short burst for like a week, make $1 million off of you, and then just shut it down. And that's all they're after. That's it. So it's like, but at the same time, if you're trying to be an honest creator and honest presenter of things, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, because again, even like in the realm of fair use, that is a sticky wicket too, because it only takes the wrong person or the right person to see something and shut you down or really come at you. Even like when it comes to like a completely non-for-profit, no monetization presentation, you can have problems, and that's unfortunate. It really is. And that's where, like, when it came to doing reviews and such, I got a little over it, because once I saw some of the company, I never had this personally hit me directly with a company getting pissy about doing a review. But I saw where some people were starting to catch some flack because if they were giving an honest review and there was something not right or broken or just half-assed in it, then the companies would get all just and pissy and copyright strike them and all this other stuff. But if it was a golden review, they were all about it because it was free advertising. And it's such a messy thing. It truly is. And so one of the things that I did run into is like pulling in like theme music to kind of, okay, say if it was Superman, I pull a little piece of, the Adventures of Superman theme just to use that opening bump, just to establish. And then get hit with a copyright strike. It's like, okay, all right, this is silly. Because again, I come from a world of radio where those things were easily handled. It was ASCAP, BMI, CSAC stuff, done, everybody's happy. And also it was going off into the ether. And so it wasn't like a replay thing and all that. And it was a mutual thing. And there was to see and hear things like, and I haven't even really got into it with like Gene Simmons, where he went before Congress, where whatever it is they're arguing as far as like radio owners and artists getting paid. Well, I am not into the weeds of it anymore, so I don't know exactly how deep or what is trying to be argued here. But I do know that the agreed upon licensing agreements with the music industry and broadcasting was always taken care of by way of ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, right? Those entities there, the radio stations had worked out the agreements, and then so stations would report and pay, and then it was up to those licensing entities to pay the record companies, and then they in turn pay the artists. That was like the ecosystem of it all. And it was fine, everybody did what you could do, because the hope was, in a perfect world, that as radio had something to put on the air to grab the audience's attention, to then sell them other stuff by way of commercials, that the broad reach of radio would introduce people to this band artist song that would encourage them to go purchase the album, even to the point where, well, and that's really it, because once you get to where you could download, that was over. But and again, it was a symbiotic circle that seemed to work pretty well. But then it's all changed, and it all continues to change. It will continue to change. But for the artists to have an issue with the radio industry in that now, and wanting to renegotiate the deal basically by way of legislation, that's a terrible idea. You really, because it just makes the gatekeeping thing even thicker and harder for people who don't, or who aren't part of that machine, because it's the machine who's fighting for it. It ain't got a damn thing to do with artists. I don't care what Gene says. The artists, but now I do have an empathy for them when it comes to signing record deals where they don't quite necessarily understand what's happening to them because they've never been in that business environment. So they get that $50,000, $100,000 advance for an album because they got signed, not understanding of how much of that money has to be paid back to the record company and for all of the other work that goes into it beyond just the creative, because it is a business, it is a machine, it is an industry. And so much just not understood that, again, it turns into, oh, they're the bad guys. Well, are they though? They may have douchey practices, but it is spelled out. Even in fine print, it's still spelled out. And then, who at this stage of the game in life, and how all that works over 100 years, doesn't know that that's how it works? If you don't, that's on you. Because if you want to be an artist and you want to be a selling artist and you want your stuff to get out far and wide, you should be doing some type of homework to learn how that process works. And if you haven't done that and you're just waiting on the fairy godmother to show up and wave her wand, and then your incredible track that you put together that someone wants to promote for you doesn't come with a price tag, because it does. It's a business, it's an industry. Your start was with the pen and paper, writing the song, picking up the instrument, and putting it all together in a rough cut that will most likely need to go into a studio to be redone with a bunch of other people inside of the studio adding to the magic machine that then gets handed off to another department that in turn gets handed to another department, to another. So again, to not understand that at this point in time, it goes beyond ignorance and right into the territory and the mass wasteland of stupidity. You got to do some homework, no matter what you do. I don't know. I'm kind of ranting there. It's where I'm trying to be useful, filling in a hole of information that people may not be aware of from my own personal lived experience. And that's the best I got. And again, and that's one of the giant takeaways from the life that Scott Adams lived. And there's so many wonderful clips that date back so far. He was consistent. And one of the tales that he told in his final words is talking about how, for him, the way he saw a successful life would be with wife and children and all that. That didn't quite work out for him as he did, so it was that he had to find new purpose. A new purpose he felt was to share the life experiences that he had acquired that he thought people might find useful. And from that point, to be just useful. Be useful. Every day, do something that makes you useful to other people. And, and it doesn't matter how big or small the scope of that usefulness is. Rather, it's to the grand community of the world at large, or just your local community, or, even better, the people inside of your home. Being useful to them. The little things. And I firmly stand on that, too. Because, again, if I can do something around the house that makes Alicia happier, or makes Caitlin smile, or teaches them something, or teaches me something that they're teaching me, audience is useful. So to be their audience is probably one of the most useful things I can do. More so than just being the know-it-all, right? But anyway, I digress. Not really. That's really kind of what it's all about today. It's about finding where is your usefulness in doing things. And it's really hard to say sometimes because, I know I have done things where you just go out on a limb. You don't know if it's going to work. But here's the thing that you got to be careful of, because again, I've fallen into this trap myself. I will come up with what I believe is a brilliant, beautiful idea. And so I will execute it, and I'll get it out there, and I'll do it. And if I'm not careful, which I'm pretty good about now, I don't make this mistake anymore. If no one asks for it, you can't get pissed when they don't care. Crazy, huh? But if they didn't ask for it, and you just did it, it's not on them to like it. Just like this. I can never get mad about people tuning in or not tuning in. Why? Because you didn't ask for this. You didn't say, hey, Jim, do me a favor. Would I need you to have a morning podcast at 8 o'clock so we can just kind of listen to you ramble for a while? That'd be awesome. Great. Thanks. Here's the check. Nobody did that. So I can never, at any point, hold an audience accountable or lack thereof. Right? I can't. That'd be dumb. It's stupid. It's a false expectation. It's just like if you create a song. You create a song and you put the song out there and it gets no action or traction online. Nobody's interested in it. Whatever. Okay. It just laid where it laid. Now, what can you do to make it better? How can I get more traction on this? Well, there are ways you can create more content that tells the story, because the end result is one thing, but the story of how it got there, that's another way to market and promote, right? And so many other things. And the story of the song is, there's a lot of things that can be done. The point being is your expectations really do have to be a balanced, realistic thing. Because if you don't have a balanced, realistic thing with what your expectations are, you will lead to burnout and get mad and be over it and done. And you don't want to turn it into the blame game. And that's the thing, is like you can easily turn it into the blame game of why can't they see? Why are they so dumb? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, maybe whatever. But at the same time, what your intention, your initial expectation is going to be what it is. And that's so important, because again, I've fallen into that trap. And now the one that gets me is, it's so funny because I will say this. I've been approached by entities locally numerous times over the years, asking me questions, picking my brain, say, hey, could you do? And I'm like, sure. And I did. And I draw up proposals, map out whole processes, some instances, just do the whole damn thing, get her done. Only to have it disappear, not happen, or someone else decide to do the grandstanding and taking props for it. Okay. Again, I've never been in this for the ego aspect, just for the sake of ego. I just really haven't. You can believe that if you will, you don't have to, but I never have. That's never been my motivator. If it was, then man, I never would have done anything, because it's, attaboys, you'll starve to death if you're working for attaboys. A little bit of appreciation would be nice, but I don't know. It's just very interesting. So I still feel that I did my part in being as useful as I could, but now I'm smart enough to know there comes a point where you do cut off the hose. And it's okay if someone calls and they say, hey, could you? What do you think about this? It's like, I'll answer your question, but it's going to cost you this for me to even entertain answering your question because I know how people are. My own fault, I set the precedent. But I also am the one, it's my fault if I don't change it. And that's what I've done now. And for a while there, it was hard to get past that. You know, it's like, man, I feel just dirty. I feel like who they are. And I don't want to be that person because I'm not that person. So understanding that and understanding, no, it's okay. If they're calling you, they called you for a reason because you're the one with their solution. People pay for solutions. That was a very hard truth I had to accept. And now I have. Because I still, in doing the things that I do now, it's like this evergreen content package thing that I can do for someone that can help them get their words out. Again, I don't do advertising. I can't do advertising. I don't have a platform. I don't have a transmitter with a dedicated audience. I don't have a million people hanging on every word I say that may very well be influenced by my actions to purchase your stuff because you're associated with me and I'm associated with you. And I don't want that. I just don't. I don't, because you don't know if I'm going to do something crazy and stupid that you don't want to be associated, and vice versa. So I don't want that responsibility. I've been there, done that. Don't like it in the least. But I do know that the skills that I've got, just starting with the basic storyteller aspect of things, I can help you frame your story in a way that you may not understand how to talk to people. And then I picked up other skills along the way that allowed me to help you tell your story and then figure out how we want to put it together and share it with the world. Does it need to be audio only, audio and video, video only, written words, published in a book, written in an article, make your own magazine? What all can you do? What kind of merchandise tie-in could be more powerful than the service itself that you create some merchandise that then in turn leads to people being aware of your service? Great example. Remember Eskimo Joe? I never knew that was a place. I knew it was a shirt with the smiling Eskimo that happened to look a lot like the general manager I worked with in Oklahoma, Bob Urosti. Godspeed, Bob. But seriously, Bob Urosti and the Eskimo Joe. If you put a parka on Bob, he looked like him. But yeah, it's like the ways you can go about doing things with a little bit of creativity can take it in so many different directions. Now, I've been notorious for not applying that to my own things as well as I know I can, because it's like that old saying of the roofer with a leaky roof. It happens. It's like when you're here, it's like doing it for oneself is always what I find to be more difficult than for doing it for someone else. If someone, okay, say I want to sit down and write Toys or Totems Volume 2, write a new book, right? From the perspective of a year later, what have I learned since exploring this topic initially and expand upon it? What have I got from feedback from people who've read the book? What's changed? What's the same? Where was I wrong? Where was I right? That's a thought, and I could sit down and start brainstorming, but it wouldn't be as fast as if you said, hey, I want to write a book. I need your help. Guide me through it. I can get you through that thing so fast it'll hurt your head. Because I do know the process, I do know the steps, and I do know I can motivate you to do so. Doing it for myself in the same note, it's just different. There's a psychological thing. I looked that up, and there is a psychological premise / condition for that type of thing. And I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's real and it's true. And it's just what we do as humans, right? So very interesting stuff. But if you want to write a book, I can do it. But now then, what do? I can just do it. But then I got to dedicate my time to it. Well, then I still got to pay for everything else in the process. So that means I got to charge you. And that's the pain point for me. But it's getting better. But it's like, I can do it, but I got to charge you, but you can't afford it. Well, let's see what we can do. And maybe we could work something out in those regards on anything, not just a book. But you know what I'm saying. But because I don't like telling people no, especially if they're sincere. But now I've made it a point to make sure they are sincere. So I have like a list of questions. With the first question that I used just yesterday is that, well, what do you want this thing to look like? If I can't get an answer to that, I know the conversation's going no further. No further. Because if the person who wants something can't start just there, that what do you want it to look like? AKA, make a decision. What do you want this to look like? If that can't be defined pretty quickly, then I know the process is going to have to dial it all the way back to where basically my creativity is going to be the one to have to bring forth everything else. Now, as a consultant, that's okay, I guess, to an extent. But when you're doing it, you will wind up creating something that isn't where they said they did. Okay, we could have backed that up there. All right, they're doing this. Here we are, we're doing this. But we don't know how to do it. Okay, well, that's cool. Well, here, answer this question. What do you want it to look like? Well, we don't know. That means you don't know shit. You do not know anything that you're wanting. You have an idea, a very vague idea, and you're needing someone else to do the whole thing. See, and that's no different. You might as well plug it into one of the robots and say, I want this. How do I do it? And then the robot says, very, very, very quickly. And you read what the robot says and you say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Odds are, though, when people, just the robot and I have a lot in common, because I can do that, put it all together, and then hand you the sheet. And then it's up to you to do it. Odds are it ain't going to get done. Whether it was a human or it was a machine that laid it all out for you. Because why? You hadn't made that initial decision. You hadn't seen it in your head, what you wanted it to look like. And if you don't have those elements right there, you don't have a foundation. You don't, period. You flat do not have a foundation on anything that you're going to do, and it will not work. But then you could either feel bad about yourself, you could beat yourself up, or you could start blaming other people, or really going after the ones who tried to help you. None of those are good. That's why, but now if you start with that first one, that first question, what do you want it to look like? Make the decision. Then you've got a foundation that grows. Now, there may be chips and steps and slips along the way, but they are just that. They're still steps moving up. Even if it's a slow, gradual thing, it's still moving up. And it's good. Just saying. So, be useful. And then these things, this is the best way I can be useful. Sharing lived experience. And that's really most what all of us can do and what we do. Now, there are more fine-tuning things you could, but even, okay, let's think about that. Say you're a plumber. Or a plumber. I use that a lot. My dad always told me I should have been a plumber. Should have been a plumber. Should have been a plumber. But then whenever I thought about being a plumber, he's like, nah, yeah, you need to be in radio. Damn it. It was the circle with us. But still, when you think about a skill that you've picked up along the way, a plumber, and then you have people who ask you plumbing questions. Everybody will. I got this leaking thing. What do you think? What do you do? Well, you're a plumber. You're a professional. What do you do to help them? Well, you can tell them how to do it. Yes. And then as soon as you do, and they attempt it themselves, well, it's your fault when it doesn't work because you told them how to do it. That's not fair or true. You say, well, I could do it, but, it's going to take me about half a day, so I got to charge you. Thought we were friends. Bruh, it ain't about being a friend. That's why it's hard to work with friends, and it's hard to work with family, and those type of things. And then, it's an interesting thing, this human interaction and relations. And that's one of the things that I know I personally have to I've got to be careful of. Because before, and for many years, I was all about just getting it done. Didn't matter to me, wasn't worried about the money. And I've never, to this day, I still don't blame anyone for those choices that I made in helping someone totally for free. I don't. I get mad at myself, made things a lot harder on the family because I gave that time away, which was not smart. But it was no one's fault but my own. But now I don't do that. And I'm washing off the ickiness of it because I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is what it was. It's cool. And I don't take offense to it. And I don't put offense on anyone else about that. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, I don't know. That's kind of all of that. But I do recommend, if you are just now catching on to, now that it's a completely viral thing with the passing of Scott Adams and drawing even more to, because it's not like he wasn't a known guy. And he earned that. He really did. For a lot of different reasons. And they were all good. They were all good. There are certain headlines I've seen, and I will name them: Boston Globe, New York Times, People Magazine. Those are the main three that have come up in the sphere that people are aware of, that were just nasty in their headlines announcing his passing. Because he did get canceled. I think it was 2023. He got into that whole cancel culture bullshit where people were, if you disagreed with the ideology of the time that went against an establishment that was trying to horribly destroy this country, if you went against that, well, then you got canceled because you were a racist or whatever particular thing they wanted to brand you as, which was simply the furthest thing for the truth in most instances, which is a shame, but it is what it is. But yeah, I hope those three publications just burn to the ground, man. I hope they're gone forever and ever very soon, because those are the things that are truly the problems in our society. They're not offering anything to the debate. If you're just spreading lies and spin that is detrimental to the human condition, go away. And if anything is locked around, this is how you can discern it from my perspective. If a message is being put out that serves only an identity ideology, ignore it, block it, ban it, run away from it. Don't have the conversations, don't engage. It is not worth it. Just, it's not a matter of putting your head in the sand so much as just do not give them your energy or power. Make a note and move on. Because again, it's like when you get to see people who really do base their everything on identity versus personality, you're seeing someone who their soul is so trapped and empty for various reasons. I don't know why. I'm not going to judge what got them to that point, but I do know things do happen that just, when you give up personality for identity, you become a drone. You are the NPC, and you are a problem because you're not adding to the grander, wonderful thing that is life that we should be working towards. Because your personality does that. The identity side of things is perpetuating something that's already in place. And is it good or is it bad? Don't know. But if it violates natural law, I have to say it's bad, because it obviously is. Let's see, and Damien kicking in here. In my experience, if you do someone a favor and they don't reciprocate, when asked, they are crap people and get no more help from me. I will help when I can, but I won't be used. See, that's the thing. It's like, and it's fine, and I agree with you. And it's like, it's finding the balance inside of that, because in a lot of instances, for me, it's like, it's been, for me to tell that person no because of what you just said there, that's one level. However, when it turns into it's someone who's doing something for a bigger person or cause, is where I really hit the sticky wickets, right? Because if this is the person who's in charge of something that oversees a larger group of people, that I know those are the people who truly benefit from what my actions would do. I had an issue with telling those people no, even though we never had a conversation, don't know anything about them, we've never talked, but they are aware of what I do and that I could help that group, but that one at the top, that one bad apple that can spoil the whole bunch because of their own, and they're not necessarily wrong in what they're let me say, wrong's not the right word. They're not necessarily malicious in their actions, but they're also not courteous either. And what is their motivation to do what they do, right? That's what I look at. What is your motivation? Are you looking for an attaboy and that's why you want it? Do you sincerely want to help those people? Do you see what I'm saying? And so finding that balance is pretty tricky, or can be. But nowadays it's not so much. I was like, I'm not that hard, but I'm a lot harder than I was before when it comes to it. But my compromise, I can honestly say, when it comes down to it, I would finally give in on a lot of things in not the greatest way, or not in the best incentive. There you go. Mainly just because I would have to, so I could take care of my family. So I was like, damn it, I guess I gotta. Because I had made the mistake. I undervalued myself. But that was stupid because, again, it was like people were coming to me, not me going to them. And so I didn't value myself. And you have to. That sounds so selfish. No, it's not. You're the one who put in the work. You're the one who put in the time. And you're the one who did it. And people came to you for you to do it for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And yeah, so in sharing all of this is the best way I could think of being useful today and paying tribute to Scott Adams. Man, what a great guy. It's like I was really hoping, of course, everybody wanted him to get better as best he could. But man, I really wanted to have the opportunity to kind of chat with him. But I wanted to make sure I had something to talk about. Because like there's a very short bucket list of people that I would like to have a conversation with that unfortunately, let's say, odd note, what's in the green box behind you, stage right? Green box. Okay, this green box here, I will presume is the one you're referencing because it's the only green box that I see. Would that be it? That would be Wolverine. Diamond Select Toys released, I cannot remember what year that was. It's been quite a while now, but it's in before the Mego Corporation came back and it was still a fun novelty. I don't have it marked on here. I can't remember what year that was. It was in the teens of the new century, but yeah, the ones that Mego never made. They had partnered, Diamond Select had partnered with MC Toys, aka Paul Clark, who did wind up working to the point where he got the official Mego Corporation back in business and what they've done since. So, but yeah, if that's the one. So, yep, that's about the only thing I could think of that's in the green box. If I missed it, point it out and I'll tell you. But back to the whole thing of being useful and Scott Adams and my little bucket list of the folks that I, like yesterday morning, before I even heard about Scott, I had I got on this, gotcha. No, see, I don't see. Did the Wolverine scratch the itch? But the little bucket list, again, going back to that, when it came to, again, on the weekend, over the weekend, I got on this big Slade kick. You know, just drinking in everything I could with their music and their story and everything else. And I made it a point, they've got an official TikTok, you know. I mean, the guys are, I don't know how many of them are left. I think there's only 2 of the original members left at this point, Naughty and Dave, lead singer, lead vocalists. Or excuse me, lead singer and lead guitarist. And but so I don't know who's running their TikTok stuff, but I just sent them a message, just say thanks, you know, one of those things. And anyway, and I'd like to have conversations with her because I always wanted to have that conversation with Ace Frehley. I did. I want, and again, I say that not being pompous or anything, but it's just, again, my experience in broadcasting. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people that are quote unquote famous, and most of the ones that I've had conversations with are just, in the radio days, you get a little bit more of the ego stuff, the conversations, you know what I'm saying, more so than the down-to-earth real conversations. Examples like way back when, and I had done an interview with, let me think of somebody that was a really good example. Not Terry Clark. What was her name? Shelley Wright. Her big hit at the time was Single White Female. And anyway, I was doing an interview with her, and it wasn't her per se, but it was just the business itself. That there was that air and that ego between artist and audience, right? And like the disc jockey's the guy in the middle. And I don't know, and just that's the type of dynamic I'm talking about on that side of it. But then when you fast forward into where we are now in like Comic Con culture, and Alicia and I have helped with a few of those things in some small ways. We didn't host anything. Some folks might think we did, but no. But we participated as best we could backstage to help out. But not fully on board with a board or anything. No. I don't like the politics of anything, but I can help you as best I can. But, you know, when you're backstage before certain things and you're talking to the folks that everybody's clamoring to see, which is good. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. We need that type of thing as human beings. But the normalcy that sphere is, and the ones who don't get that, okay, normalcy being, well, one example, like before they broke the planet, literally the weekend before they broke the planet, and we were at Branson Con at the Welk, and the big headliner at that one was Kevin Sorbo, Hercules. And it was so funny because he's such a truly down-to-earth guy. Very confident in what he does. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same, but he's a very down-to-earth guy. And it was so funny because as there was a hiccup I was working on trying to get fixed for the stage stuff, and it was so funny because Alicia and Caitlin were just hanging back with him, and they were just talking. And Caitlin had just got some popcorn. She said, "You want some?" And so Caitlin and Hercules are just having popcorn and just talking. You know, those little normal things like that. So that's where I come from when I say I'd like to have a conversation with someone in that manner. I'm not coming at them as a fanboy. I have appreciation as a fan, but at the same time, not as a fanboy. So I just kind of spell that out for you there. Because there are a few. Again, like I said, I wanted it with Ace Frehley. I'm glad I didn't, though, because at the end of the day, having seen other interviews with Ace, that's a conversation that I don't think I could have had that I really wanted to have. You know, I don't think I could have got that out of Ace. Another great example of that type of thing, 2017, I guess it was, I had done a phone thing with Burt Ward, aka Robin, right, the Boy Wonder. But he was so dialed in to what he was trying to hawk that we didn't have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? I tried to get some questions in to talk to him, but nope, he was dialed in on selling that nasty ass dog food that none of my animals would touch. Is what it was. But again, and it's that thing. And again, I'm not picking on Burt Ward when I say it. It's just what it was. There was no conversation to be had. He was in work zone blinder mode, and I don't like that. I don't want that side of things. As far as it's like whenever you book, because if you got somebody that's promoting a new book, album, record, movie, website, whatever, they're there for a reason. They want to promote that thing. But if they can't let their hair down to have a conversation, then that it's just dead to me. It means nothing. It just means nothing. I don't much care for it. 4 minutes away from the 9 o'clock hour on a Wednesday morning, January the 14th, 2026. 46 degrees there under cloudy conditions in the Ozarks region. It looks to be another nice day. It looks like it sprinkled a little bit overnight, but that's okay. Speaking of which, that's weather, and you know weather. I got to talk about my buddy Brandon Ruley in Arkansas and Storm Track 360. Again, it's like he's not getting to stay as busy as well. You know, that's one of those things. It's like kind of a catch-22. He's got it. He's there when you need it, and you want him to do well and succeed. But at the same time, we don't want him to have to work too hard because then we all got problems. So but I do know with Storm Track 360, he's built out the app more and more, and he's added more features and everything. So even with the basic things that we all could definitely use in a day, as far as like temperature, conditions, what's possibly coming, and it's all there. Live alerts, all of it. Check it out. So I gotta give him a shout out because again, I had a dream about him last night. Brandon, if you're watching, I had a dream about you. It was kind of interesting. But anyway, wasn't bad, but it was what it was. Anyway, that's about it. The rest of the world, of course, is trying to burn down. Nothing makes sense right now for what our government is doing out there around the world to surge as we are in conflicts left and right and left. My only hope is to think that there is an end game that we're not seeing yet, but it is all tying towards it, because otherwise it's the most chaotic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But I don't believe it's just pure chaos for the sake of chaos. I think there is an end game that is being worked towards, and I can't say justify, but explain why we're deciding to go into all these different fronts simultaneously, because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. So, but I don't know. Like I say, I'm still going to stand behind and with my country because I was born here, and apparently I was supposed to be born in the United States of America at this time. And so I'm going to stay with the home team. And you should too. Even if you disagree with them, stick with the team. 209 for gas in Branson yesterday. That's cool. Yeah, we got to run the premium in the Infiniti that Alicia has, because it's one of those cars that you just have to. And I was tickled to death when I saw it was actually $2.99 a gallon the other day. Versus that's the first time in a very long time it's been under $3. So that was really cool. So again, there's things that are happening. One thing that I must give the president, like when it comes to the Venezuela thing, I mean, he called it out just what it was. It's about oil. At least they said it. They normally never say it. you know. And now they kind of try to sprinkle in the same old talk about, well, you know, we're spreading democracy and with a bomb. Okay, that's democratic. And again, I'm not, just to be clear, I will never ascribe to be a pacifist, tree-hugging hippie type. If you are, Godspeed. But I also don't like the idea of humans being killed for any real reason. Well, there are very few real reasons that a human being should be taken out, and never a civilian who had nothing to do with nothing. Okay, and I can't not point to irony when it comes to like the fist wagging, because it's not just finger wagging, it's fist wagging when it comes to like the protests in Iran, encouraging those people to continue to protest their regime and to a regime that will really kill you, because that's how they maintain control, from everything we understand about that, to not wanting to protest here. Yeah, peaceful doesn't mean harmless. That's true. That is very, very true. It's a good statement. But again, it's like to encourage one nation to do what we really don't want to happen here. There's a hypocrisy in there that is dangerous, in my opinion. It's like, you know, the end results are still the same. The way people have been weaponized. Okay, like when we look at the protests that are happening on the streets here now, not here, but like say in Minneapolis or LA or those other cities. I mean, those people are weaponized with ideology that is identity. And what we say about that, they're giving away personality for identity. It won't end well. And that's the same type of thing that's happening on the streets of Iran when they're going against their goal is not just protest, it is absolute change. That's the same thing here. So if the threat is that if you hurt those protesters, Iran, we're coming for you, well, the shoe could be on the other foot. Oh, what's stopping? You see what I'm saying? Just saying. It's 9 o'clock. I got to go. But this is fun. And we're going to be useful today. That's my goal for myself. Be useful and figure out the best way to do that. And I challenge everyone to the same thing. We'll do it again tomorrow morning. And keep on rocking in the free world. Damn, there's that copyright strike.
From the Delta dirt to the Ozark high, underneath that bright red river sky, 75 heartbeats, one natural state. The virtual stump is gonna set the record straight. Benton's got